Playground!
Hooray!
Hey! It's my song! Let's sing it! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Come on! It's gonna be fucking awesome! You know the words! It's gonna be fucking awesome! That's it! Sing! It's gonna be fucking awesome! Yeah!
Hey ho, Coolest Geeks, and I, JESSE BLAZE SNIDER, the Coolest Geek Alive. Care there, stare out to all of you. How are you doing? Are you doing well? I'm doing really well. It's really awesome to bring this show to you tonight, Sunday night, as it will be now, and as it will be renamed, Coolest Geeks Alive from now on. Because as I've told you, I don't think I'm the coolest geek alive. It's just, an aspiration I have. It's something I'm working towards. I'm trying to live up to what I think the coolest geek alive might be. And there is somebody with similar virtues who I want to introduce to you guys in a second. And I'm having trouble getting him into the studio. He told me that he was in the studio and he wasn't there. I feel like he will show up in a second. Hopefully, I'm going to send him another invite. And I will make sure that he gets in here. But I have talked about this man for the entirety of my podcasting career here. And this is 102 episodes for me of Coolest Geek Alive now. And we've had like an average pretty consistently for a while now of like 500,000 downloads a month. So I don't know what it translates into actual people listening. Thank you so much for all the people who have been listening. And now for those people who like to watch things on YouTube, like I like to too, I'm here on YouTube. And for this Sunday show, I am bringing you one of the coolest geeks alive, one of the coolest, most reasonable, honorable, and brilliant and artistic and smart and cool people that I've ever met in my life. He and I have never had any sort of disagreement that wasn't immediately figured out within seconds. We've been friends now for well over a decade. Oh, there he is now in the back in the room. Yay. All right, awesome. It all works out. He's just the most wonderful man I've ever met, and one of the most wonderful relationships I've ever had in my life. I'm so grateful to have him in my life, especially as a creative person, as an insightful leader in a room full of creative people. I have seen him time and time again just be a thought leader, really understanding the market, thinking about the audience, which is something that we talk about on the show all the time. These assholes, they just try to reverse engineer all of these entertainment concepts, and they miss the point entirely. At the end of the day, it comes down to love. If there's a passionate fan base, there's a reason, and you've got to go into the source material and really love what it is you are, working on, whatever it may be. I try to write without a style. I really try to write exactly correct for whatever it is I'm working on. Not about me, not about me injecting myself into the thing. If there's some personal experience that I can add to the proceedings, I will. But that's not how you do it. You have to do this stuff organically. And there's no one who I've seen in action doing this better than Aaron SPARROW. And not only that, there's a DEI initiative where all these people are being put into places. It's so interesting because I've always had the most diverse working experience and such a diverse life in general. I never knew it was a problem. And part of that was because I work with Aaron. And there is just naturally a diversity of people who are passionate and great at what they do that have found their way to us. And it's just so interesting to me, the microcosm that Aaron and I have worked in very frustratingly of, doing this stuff the right way and having, spectacular results. We worked at Boom Studios together for a long time. And he and I were working on doing more Disney stuff a while. He did a whole bunch of Disney stuff. And recently he's done a little animation, which is really cool. And, we'll be able to get lots of great information and stories out of him. And, I just want to, for this one episode, introduce you guys so you know from now on, this is Coolest Geeks. This is Aaron's fucking show. I'm going to let him sort of program this shit because I'm going to program Wednesday. So, this is my co-host, my hetero life mate, let me please introduce to you one of my favorite people alive, one of the coolest geeks, Aaron Sparrow.
That is high praise. Thank you. I'm I'm all right. I'm all right, I guess. Jesse, I think Max is saying that he thinks that your StreamYard is picking up your wrong mic.
It's picking up the wrong mic?
Well, yeah, like your camera is like super grainy and the mic is like really echoey.
Okay, cool. Let's see. Well, you can say that I'm a horseradish while I see if I can fix that.
What is that? Hey everybody, how's it going?
First
of all, it's like it kind of like slurs in and out. First of all, I have to apologize. I am super tired. I have a headache. And so I am like really out of sorts for this first show. Like it's just it's been a heck of a week. It's been a heck of a day. The week's not getting any easier, at least until Wednesday. So I apologize in advance for how tired and loopy I may get.
Well, no, you're going to get excited real fast because I already started thinking because today, that whole thing in honor of the Coolest Geek Alive thing, because I have a tattoo on my arm that says Coolest Man Alive, and it's really inspired by the Fonz, and how the Fonz would be really helpful to the Happy Days people. He was a useful person on the show for everybody, and and I like that idea of being Johnny on the spot, like I could be useful, and I think there are people in the geek culture world, whether they be writers or directors, actors, who are holding a line of love and affection and, really doing things the right way. And I want to figure out who are the 11. And I like 11. I always pick 11 for some reason.
Why 11? Like it's not top 10. It's like top 11.
Yeah, well, you know what it was? Because I did the AOL top 11 countdown years ago, and Spinal Tap, and that was why they did it. And I was like, yeah, no, I like the reference. I just got to keep the 11. This goes to 11. And I like the 1 1 and 11 11 and this little spiritual thing, But it's so funny because there's so many people I've been covering over the past months, because when I started doing the music show and I was speaking positively about music every week, I realized how negatively I was speaking about geek culture week after week. And I was like, this kind of sucks. So I started doing a lot of features on things I love. And I just did Masters of the Universe and a couple different things. And, but I've been doing it for a while now. And, most of the people responsible for all of the things that I'm talking about are gone. The Walt Disneys and the Jim Hensons and so many. But John Lassiter, though he may be sort of canceled, is still alive. And, and Art Adams is still alive, even though we've lost Jack Kirby. And, even though Mobius is gone, J.R.R. is still here. So, who are, the 11, quintessential, marquee? Is it George or Martin?
No.
Who do we got?
No, it's not.
Is it Robert Kirkman? He's doing a lot of good things. Is it what's his name? Nolan or Edgar Wright? John Cleese is still alive. I think we need to put him on the list.
Yeah, no, John Cleese is great. Yeah, George R.R. Martin I would not put on the list because finish your damn book, George. Also, when he goes out on a tear and he starts attacking Tolkien, and it's yeah, well, you know what Tolkien did that you didn't, George? He finished his book. He finished his story. He made a promise to the readers and he finished it. I don't subscribe to Neil Gaiman's idea that as an author you don't owe anything to the readers, and he's used that statement to kind of defend George R.R. Martin not finishing his books. And it's look, you created A Song of Ice and Fire, and you got people on board. You do owe it to them to try to finish the story. I get it. I get that it's a lot of writing. I get that it's a lot to do. but that's what you signed up for when you created your fandom. And you know, I know that you're getting Hollywood deals and you're getting to go and write these little things and you're getting to show up on the red carpet, you know, looking like the Gorton fisherman in every appearance. But you got to finish those books, George.
It's sort of ridiculous, isn't it? Like, because isn't that the hope and the dream that like you're going to make this thing and people are going to want to, you know, see the story to the end, and you know, to not come through on that. Well, you know what? It would be one thing to not come through, because you know, like to some degree, I do agree with Gaiman, but it's like that thing of like, you know, you don't expect anything from anyone, but you'd be really happy to get it. And when they start to like sort of antagonize you for wanting it, that's like well, come on, guys. like seriously, you're turning my compliment into a dig.
Well, when you set out and you say like, hey, here's the story I'm going to tell, you know, people do want an ending to the story, especially when they start investing their time in it. So, you know, there's all kinds of authors that finish their stories and then start new ones and finish those and continue them on. You know, we've got some in the chat here, people saying C.S. Lewis, J.K. Rowling, I'd say Terry Brooks. Hey, Robert Jordan died of cancer. Robert Jordan died of cancer midstream in his book series, and before he died, he brought in Brandon Sanderson and said, "Here's all the places that you know this was going to go," and had Brandon Sanderson finish it using his notes. So you know it can be done. It can be done, and it should be done.
It can be done, and it should be done. I like that.
From beyond the grave, Robert Jordan made sure his book series was finished.
So I've got Edgar Wright so far. I think we can, I mean, not Edgar Wright. I've got John Cleese so far as a definite. I think that we can put Peter Jackson in here. And I was thinking that a definite would be Guillermo Del Toro.
Yeah. Del Toro has the same kind of problem about starting and finishing. Like there's so many like projects that get started and then never get finished, and that's not always his fault. Sometimes it's the studio, sometimes it's the fact that the studio doesn't want to give him the 6 years of lead time that he wants to develop something. You know, those things happen. I also know some behind the scenes things with Guillermo Del Toro. He is kind of a genius / madman. So really, you know, not the easiest. It's not really my story to tell. I don't want to, and if I start talking about it, I might give.
What's the crack? Which is like, you know, what they say in like the Scottish.
Well, it's just like, let's just say that sometimes, you know, creators that are involved with Del Toro may be placed in the unfortunate position of protecting his IP from him.
Well, it's so
like sometimes he'll forget what the point of the IP was and what the story was that he told, and he'll start saying, well, you could do this and you could do this, and it's like, yeah, but that'll completely change that doesn't work because of the story that you already established, you know, when it comes to like doing like prequel stories and things like that. There's definitely, you know, some things like that. So but that's, you know, that's the sort of thing that, you know, when you're a genius on that level, I guess that you know, you have the right to be completely out of your mind and you know, difficult to work with.
Well,
not difficult in a way like he's mean or like he's, you know, like that, but just, you know, complex.
But defending on the level of, you know, I think the stretchy and kind of windy nature of the development system is all wrong for his sort of temperament, you know. So they're like, oh, well, that's a better idea, you know, like kind of thing or whatever. Like I could see that sort of being a problem because you get so bored when you're waiting for so many of the things, you know, by the time some of these things come around, like you have all new ideas.
Yeah. You know, and it's like, you know, hey, I've been living with this thing for this many years, and it's just been sitting there, and I've thought of 12 things since then. And you guys kind of like, you know, you ruined my love of the thing that we were working on 6 years ago. And I'm on to these other things now that I want to do. It definitely happens. But I would definitely put Del Toro in kind of that creative genius space, that, you know, one of the greatest living geeks that we have, because he does love this stuff, and he does want to create this stuff, and he does want to get it out there. So yeah, I think Del Toro is definitely on that list.
I feel like for Pan's Labyrinth and Blade 2 alone, you know, we got to give it to him.
both the Hellboy movies, you know, just
and he still do it. You know, like he hasn't lost it. Like Frank Miller was somebody I was thinking about, but I really feel like Frank has kind of lost the way. A lot of really great creative people get kind of into a self-made route.
Drugs.
I feel like
they get into drugs. Hardcore drug use.
But I was such a huge Frank Miller fan for so long. Like all of the original Sin City trades, like the first 5 of them are amazing.
Yeah, no, Sin City was great. And then it's a shame that the second movie didn't work out because I really liked that first one. I think that it was really good. The second one, it has its merits, but it's not as good. And then when he tried to direct that Spirit movie, I got like 20 minutes into that before I tapped out. I've never gone back and tried to watch it again.
Oh yeah, I don't think I'm pretty good at avoiding the things I don't think I'll like. But he made so many things that I have, so I'm like, I forgive him.
Have you ever heard the story of him like he was showing up on the set every day of RoboCop 2, which he wrote. And he had to watch Irvin Kershner tearing pages out of the script saying, this is shit, this is shit, this is shit, and just like eviscerating it.
Whoa.
That can't have felt good.
Dude, well, I mean, and like, did you see The Spirit? That movie is really not good.
Yeah, no, it's like I said, I got 20 minutes in and then I was like, I need to tap out on this. This is I can't do this.
I saw it in theaters and like a theater, and I was just
I walked out.
No way. Like I literally like kind of watched it with my mouth open, like I can't believe that somebody who I respect creatively so much made this.
Well, not everybody's good at everything. Just because you can lay out a comic page and you can plan out plot out a book and even though you're creating these really great shots and things like that, it doesn't mean that you can get up and you can be a cinematographer and a director and direct actors and do all these things. And that was really evident in The Spirit, which is unfortunate because I really love Will Eisner's Spirit, and I was really hoping that we'd get a really cool version of it on the screen. But it just did not work out that way, did it?
No. And Darwin Cook had been doing a really good run of like reinvigorating the Spirit concept and reintroducing some of those concepts to people. So like it was really kind of a good moment because there was I think there was an optimistic group of people who kind of went in there, and it could have been like an indie something cool, but it was not good.
Murphy, crowd control in the comments. She says that George R.R. Martin has given the ending of Game of Thrones to guys he's played D&D with for decades. They will finish it if he dies.
All right. So how about Henry Cavill? Does he make it simply for holding the line in a lot of important ways? Because I have so much respect for how he still thinks. Sort of the reverse of the respect that I have for The Rock and how he handled the Shazam franchise, which basically he could have actually made that whole franchise for DC limp on if he had appeared in the first Shazam film, came back for the sequel, and had his own movie. And he refused to do that. And I really think that would have been just enough for them to limp on. And he kind of single-handedly screwed the pooch by dishonoring, the main tenets of the franchise. He's Shazam.
Who are you talking about before you mentioned The Rock?
Henry Cavill.
Oh yeah, Henry Cavill's definitely on my list. I mean, that guy's a geek through and through. He would rather be playing Warhammer, or well, maybe not now that they've changed the custodies, but he'd rather be playing Warhammer or Dungeons and Dragons and doing some tabletop gaming and nerding out to some stuff than going to Hollywood parties. I think it's one of the reasons that I think that Tiffany Haddish just said she was super into him, but then she met him and he was super awkward and just kind of a nerd, and she wasn't really into it. And it was maybe he did that intentionally. He dodged that bullet. Good for him. I think that he's definitely a geek at heart, and he loves the stuff that he loves, and he wants it to be good. And that's why The Witcher was such a disaster, is because he cared about the property, and all of the writers we know from even Bo DeMeo was who worked on X-Men '97 before getting fired. He said that the writer's room, they hated the source material, and he saw it as a way to never run a writer's room again. or to never be part of a writer's room like that. So yeah, they were all against him from the start. And what he wanted to do is he wanted to keep it true to, you know, the lore and make the best Witcher series possible. And they wanted to make something else entirely and hollow out the Witcher and just stuff that into its skin.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that he's the line in a number of cool ways at this point, and you know, and really shown himself to be a man of honor. And you know, for me, geek culture, that's what it's all about. Like we are the thinking men. We are the people who read, and it's like we're the people who laugh when we hear so many of the things that other people say because we've read enough books to know a little bit more about what's going on, and we think about things a little bit more deeply to understand how they might affect people. And you know, and I really believe that comes from a love of worlds, you know, science fiction and fantasy and all these things that, you know, tie us together. And the people that either appreciate those things very deeply or you know, are actively a part of them, and you know, and Care Bear staring, as I like to say, you know, their hearts out into the world actively. You know, I think, you know, that's like just like the most wonderful thing. You know, Jim Henson is my idol, and you know that I say he's the coolest geek that ever lived, because he just brought new and creative things, and you know, brought a whole new world and a whole new way of thinking into, you know, the way we do things. You know, but is Brian Henson as quite of a legacy, and Brian has done some really great work. I've really come to really appreciate the things that he did after his father passed away, especially in lieu of everything that they've done since. I was wondering what you thought about him, and also Steve Whitmire, who I think is very brilliant as modern day puppeteer, and Frank Oz, who is alive. And I feel like Frank Oz we have to put on the list. Can you make your mic stationary?
I think you're holding your mic. You're clipping in and out, and it's kind of hard to hear. I mean, is anybody in the chat, like, it's hard for me to hear. I don't know if the chat is experiencing the same thing.
Is it really? I don't know if it's my mic. Well, maybe it is, but because it's completely clear on my end. Like I'm not here. Like I'm recording it and I'm doing a couple different things. And I don't have any problems on my end. So I don't know if it's StreamYard maybe, or maybe it's your. I don't know.
It maybe that I'm the only one hearing it, but if anybody else in the chat is hearing it, can you? Yeah. Okay. So like J Coach is saying that it's choppy at times.
Choppy at times. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll try to hold my mic kind of steady. I had like a little bit of like a technical difficulty over in the week. Seems like my band.
Your bandwidth. At first, I was thinking Michael was saying that your band is not the greatest because the way that it's separated bandwidth, I was like, what?
Well, recording
good. But no, your bandwidth is maybe not the greatest because your video is really bad too.
Yeah, see, like it's like perfectly, like everything's like nice over here. Mm-hmm. Everything looks nice here. I don't understand.
Yeah, so someone in the chat said Frank Oz definitely belongs on the list. I definitely agree. Yeah. I think that you know, these are all people who cared about the end product. It's the way that so many of us that are in the comic book industry, that are in the entertainment industry, that actually care about these things. We want them to be good. We care about the source material. We care about the fandom. We care, you know, because we're part of the fandom. We care about these things being presented in the right way. We care about them, you know, continuing to live on and, you know, to inspire future generations the way that they've inspired us. And unfortunately, you know, we talk about it a lot on Comics Aficionados over on Thinking Critical, where Doc coined the phrase cultural locusts. And unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. A lot of people that want to get assigned to things just because they're like, oh, that thing is popular. That thing has name recognition. It'll look good on my resume. But they don't actually have any interest in the thing or in making the thing good. So they try to make the thing something else. And then it alienates the core fan base and doesn't pick up a new fan base. And then that property becomes radioactive for, you know, how many years until maybe it gets a reboot. But unfortunately, we're at the stage where we're not getting reboots of that stuff because we're still in the everybody is turning it to crap kind of stage of entertainment.
I nominate Weird Al Yankovic. All right. The years have it.
I don't disagree. Like I don't, Weird Al's great. He has had, a guy that like, I think a lot of people like saw him and was like, oh, he just does parody songs and he'll be like a flash in the pan. It'll wear off. That guy has had an incredibly long career doing what he does. And I think that, part of it is that he does have, he's a really great vocalist. He has, great talent, as a singer and as a songwriter, even when he's not parodying things. And I will say that a couple of years ago during San Diego Comic-Con, James Silvani and I went to one of his concerts. My friend Dave Knight got us tickets because it was at the university where he worked. And he got us tickets to go see Weird Al's show. And it is easily in the top 3 concerts I've ever been to. And I don't even know who else I would quantify in that top 3, but I know that Weird Al's in there.
I've seen him 2 times. He's wonderful. And I mean, really, for me, the clincher was the biopic that they did recently. It is a parody of biopics, and it is brilliant. If you haven't seen it, Eric, it's just really interestingly done and very clever, very funny. And, I think there are, people that lead the charge in letting others feel comfortable, being, again, a bit more brainy. And a lot of people kind of go, Weird Al Yankovic or whatever, but he's so fun and funny. And you have to be able to like connect that childlike, sense of wonder to enjoy some of the stuff. But it's like, it's awesome. Like we can't lose that. That's like, for me, that's why, our culture cannot be destroyed.
Well, he's definitely made one of the most enjoyable comedies of all time in UHF. So if you guys in the chat have not seen UHF, I highly recommend that you go check it out. It's a really funny movie. It still holds up.
From my brother Shane's favorite movies. I think it might be his favorite movie of all time.
Really, favorite of all time. I
think it's his favorite movie of all time. I texted him the other day something about Spatula City. Spatula City. So I don't know if you feel the same as me, but I think that he deserves a spot on the list. Joe Quesada, who was the editor of Marvel Comics for a very long time during their modern day renaissance, and was gradually sort of promoted up the ladder where he had a decent amount of influence on the creative committee, along with some other people who I would, nominate as like, runners up, like Craig Kyle, who was great stuff in terms of lovingly translating like the comic books into animation and in other places. Jeff Loeb, but I kind of feel and Jeff Loeb is somebody who I'm considering as well for ultimately like just a killer who's still there, and he's really been very consistent no matter what he's done. But how do you feel about Joe Quesada first, and we'll talk about it.
I reject Joe Quesada as being on the list. Don't care for him. Don't care for him much at all. Not so much who he was, but who he became. I think that there is a huge problem a lot of times with certain levels of success, and you become something that maybe if when you were younger, if you would have seen what you'd become, you would have kicked your own ass and prevented it from happening. And I think maybe that Joe falls into that camp for me. I've seen Joe endorse some people online that I think are incredibly detrimental to the comic book industry. I think that he got way too involved in the wrong side of the culture war, if you want to coin that phrase. You want to use that phrase,
well, it's interesting that you say that, because
I'll give him his due. Fantastic artist. Made some really good moves with Marvel in the when he took over as editor in chief. But I think that there's a lot of editors in chief that are kind of like unsung at Marvel. A lot of the things that Jim Shooter gets credit for, people forget happened under Tom DeFalco. So Tom DeFalco gets almost no real credit as a fantastic steward of the Marvel ship. So I would put Tom Falco above Joe Quesada. I'd put him on the list, and I wouldn't put Joe Quesada there.
Yeah, would you put? See, because I wouldn't necessarily put the Falco, because I don't feel that creatively he really brought anything to the company. I would say that in general, the creative.
He created incentives. He created incentives for people to create characters at Marvel, and therefore it during his time as editor in chief, there were a lot of people that were creating new characters for Marvel, which you just don't see anymore. Because why would you? Why would you create a character for Marvel now? Everybody's a derivative of another character because there's no benefit to you thinking up something really cool.
That already exist.
Yeah, no, because why? Like you save that character for yourself, where you can go and do something with it yourself. Because otherwise, Disney's going to take it. It'll end up in a movie. At least until recently, the movie might make $1 billion. I don't know if they're going to see that anytime again soon. Maybe Deadpool, maybe. But and you get a check for $5,000 if you were lucky, and maybe an invite to the movie premiere. I think it was Jim Starlin said that he got more money from DC and Warner Brothers for Lucius Fox than he did for Thanos at Marvel. As far as royalties go for creating that character, that they made billions and billions of dollars on, their movies, broke records and that whole Thanos saga, and Jim Starlin got basically almost nothing.
Yeah, there's been some really interesting information come out in tweets and little things from some of these old school creators who created some of these characters used, and what they've gotten, and the size of the checks for the royalty that Ed Brubaker got, and things like that. That's very interesting. So what about Jeff Loeb? I feel like he's really creatively done a lot of really connecting the dots and bringing together a lot of love from the past and teaching others how to bring it forward. So you do not think he deserves a spot on the list either?
No, and it's only because I can only think of two really great things that I think Jeff Loeb has done. One is The Long Halloween, and the other is Dark Victory.
You don't love his work with Jimmy on Hush, the Hush saga?
I don't know what you said.
You didn't love Hush?
No, I did not love Hush. As a story, I think Hush was...
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, you don't like his color miniseries? I was just going to name a few of them that I really enjoyed. His color series I thought were really good.
I thought some of them were good, but I didn't think any of them ever rose to, and obviously it's a high bar. I think Long Halloween and Dark Victory are high bars. But it's just kind of I think there's a lot of writers that come in with one or two stories when they start out, a story that maybe they've been thinking about for a long time, and they get a lot of acclaim for it, and then they never really they spend the rest of their career chasing that. Scott Snyder is one of those for me. Court of Owls I thought was good. I don't think that the landing was stuck particularly well, but it's one that people really like, and I think that he spent the rest of his career kind of chasing that and never really attaining it again. So I don't know. I think that there's creators that kind of go through that. They peak too early, maybe.
All right. Well, then I nominate Geoff Johns.
I will. You know what? I would kill for Geoff Johns to be back at DC and having some sort of creative control over it right now. I would absolutely kill for that, because I think that as much as people didn't necessarily love the idea of mashing the Watchmen with the DC universe with Doomsday Clock, I think it turned out, probably better than I expected it to be, as well as it, probably had any right to be. And I think that would have been a much better direction to go in than dark metal and whatever the hell it is that we have now at the DC universe.
I have literally never read anything from him except for one thing that was not awesome. Everything, I started reading his Flash back in the day. His Wally West Flash run was some of the best comic books I've ever read in my life. I was so engaged. There's so many great villains. It was just one of my favorite runs to follow. And then as soon as everybody noticed how good he was, and he was writing Avengers and a bunch of things, they really were over his shoulder a lot. And I would see sort of their fingerprint sometimes in certain things, like things that they did to his Flash run to push it forward, really deteriorated a lot of the great things that were going on in his Flash run. He had to do these things to re-push it out again. But his Green Lantern Rebirth and all the stuff that he did there, I know people have been just meddling in his ability to be helpful to the films because he is so damn talented. It's so apparent in everything he writes. Batman 3 Jokers series was also awesome. And one of my favorite, if you get your hands on it, drawn by Vance Burr. It's just like so freaking cool looking. It's called Iron Heights, and it's
I've read Iron Heights.
One of my favorite books ever. It's a little prestige format. It's so awesome. So many villains in it. I highly recommend anybody who loves a great comic book, like a beautiful one, like that. Just go order it from somewhere. It's so worth it. All right, so Geoff Johns, we can agree. How about John?
I'll Geoff Johns on there, yeah. I
say John Lassiter.
I agree, and I don't even think I need to quantify that. I think that when he was in charge of Pixar, they only had one miss the entire time he was at Pixar. And from what I know from working at Pixar at the time, not directly at Pixar, but working with them on various book adaptations and things like that, the only miss he ever had under his reign was Good Dinosaur. And that was a movie that they were having a lot of trouble finding the story in. When I first saw footage from it up at Pixar, because we were going to be working on a book, it was about farming. It was about dinosaurs in this agrarian society farming, and then obviously became something very different by the time it came out in theaters. And my understanding was from people at Pixar that, up until then, they had a policy of, if we can't find the story, we're not going to release it. And at that point, Disney was like, you've spent this much on development for this. You need to release something so we can recoup some of this. Which, of course, became like the first kind of like black mark on Pixar's record. But it's the only miss that happened under John Lassiter. And since John Lassiter's been gone, everything has been a miss. Some of the movies have been okay. I enjoyed Soul well enough. I enjoyed Soul well enough. The last good movie that they had was Coco. That's the last truly great movie I think that Pixar put out.
Yeah. I got over it with Elemental because my kids watched it a bunch, and it's okay, but it's not the level of Pixar that was before. I was tortured with The Good Dinosaur. It was great and loved it, and he watched it over and over and over again. That movie sucks. But that is the only one that's really particularly terrible. The Cars movies are okay. They're not brilliant, but the rest of their material is brilliant. Their approach in general is brilliant. And then he brought that for a while. A lot of people don't realize it because he barely had a chance to begin. But he was made the executive producer for all of the Disney material before he was basically Me Too'd out the door. And it really has come out in many different ways. It really didn't do anything particularly. It was just like a power grab. And they got rid of one of the greatest creative people on planet Earth. Is responsible for why, if you're a Disney animation fan like me, Meet the Robinsons is so good. Movies like Bolt and things like that came out at that time. And granted, these ones were ones that were already in the mix, and he came in to start writing the ship. But then so much of the stuff that even by the end of things that you would think were what was the last hit that they had? El Canto, not El Canto.
No, Encanto flopped. Encanto flopped hard.
The one before that.
Was it Moana?
But he was
Zootopia, one of the Frozen sequel. It's
I forget which movie, but he's basically been in every hit that they've had on their side of Disney animation stuff came from him, in major ways. And his influence, and they've just been taking it apart. So I say John Lassiter definitely, and and honestly, he's a number one with a bullet for me because I think he's still a deadly weapon in the right hands.
Well, our friend Chris Gore, and Alan Ng over at Film Threat, they've been doing the D files where they talk about these things that they're getting from insiders at Disney. And the reason that John Lassiter was Me Too'd out the door is it was a convenient way for Bob Iger to get rid of him, because John Lassiter was very likely next in line for Iger's position, and Iger eliminates all threats to his hold on power. Because if you think about it, John Lassiter had run Pixar. John Lassiter knows business, but John Lassiter is also a creative, which Bob Iger will never be on his best day. As a creative, he's a really mediocre weatherman.
Dude, he could have absolutely changed Disney. Like, I mean, like he was already on his way. Like, you know, I'm a huge Disney fan. You know, I'm a little kid who, when I went to Disney, they had an information hotline that you could call and you could ask them questions. And I called them and I hand wrote down every single Disney animated feature in order. And then the list of the Disney live action that have Disney animation in them, so that I could go home and find them all and watch every single Disney animated feature.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was important to me. I wanted the whole list. I wanted to be able to say I've watched every single Disney. So like,
this is before the internet, obviously, where you could just like Google a list.
Yes. So I mean, like, you know, like this was early. It's funny. I'm hanging out with my very best friend from 4th grade. I haven't actually seen him since 4th grade, but we reconnected many years ago now. We've been threatening to, you know, hang out with each other for a while, and finally we're catching up. And it's just so funny to you know, just like to see your 4th grade self. He was like just like you did. And it's like the same thing. Very funny. Anyway, all right. I am suggesting Edgar Wright. We think Edgar Wright is in the running.
I really like his films. I can go with that.
I think he's really brilliant. He brings love and affection and a great coolness and comedy to everything he does. Also, real seriousness, serious thought that's put into the stuff that he does. And I feel like he's just a really thoughtful artist, and one of the people that I'm always excited to hear about anything they're doing.
I can watch pretty much any Edgar Wright film over and over again, whether it's Shaun of the Dead or Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I mean, for me to watch Scott Pilgrim versus the World over and over again, when I feel like Michael Cera was totally wrong for the role of Scott Pilgrim, but it's still, you know, rewatchable, that's really saying something.
It really, I mean, there's so much. I mean, just his fingerprints on Ant-Man. You know, the reason why the Ant-Man franchise is so great. I mean, he built that thing before he left, and there's just so much.
Is it
fun.
though? Is the franchise great, or is just that first movie pretty good? Because the second movie is very mediocre, and the third movie is a steaming pile of.
When it comes to comedy, you know, if you either accept the thing or you don't. And as a fun family franchise, I love watching that with my kids. I think it's super fun, and I think it's handled interestingly enough to really make you think. The third one is not included in this at all, but the second one is just sort of a repeat of the first one, and you know, and within that realm, all of, you know, the bits. Like, I mean, so much of the reason why the third one sucks so bad is, like, you know, his friends are in the movie, you know, and his friends were such a good part of that. You know, it rooted him in the world that he was from. And
but you got his daughter. You got his daughter talking about how you know, he doesn't do enough, even though he helped save the world. That didn't replace all the friends for you. Come on, that's you weren't like, yay, girl power. Look at her. She taught herself. You know, all the stuff about the quantum realm without any help at all. How many genius girl scientists are in the current MCU? How many? It's getting
hard. But MODOK alone is like, I hate that movie with all my heart.
MODOK is a crime.
I'm going to totally guess over 11, because I have like 3 more already that I feel like are all I think you'll agree with. I was going to say Brad Bird.
Yes. Okay. Yep. I'll go with Brad Bird. Absolutely. He's made the only good Fantastic Four movie that we've ever gotten in our lifetime. Although I will say that the recently passed Roger Corman, who, you know, may he rest in peace, just a titan in the field who discovered so many amazing talents, including Jack Nicholson, all these people that got their start because of him. He produced the only accurate Fantastic Four movie that we've ever gotten on the big screen. For all its flaws, that movie is the only accurate portrayal of the Fantastic Four that we've ever gotten.
It's great. The sequel, which I was disappointed in, and I realized it's because it's very lopsided. And this happens times when they like try too hard to like put everything on one, you know, like they tried to make it super girl power to some degree, and they sort of ended up with an unfortunate thing where they did a disservice to Mrs. Incredible with the movie. But what she was going through wasn't as interesting actually as what Mr. Incredible was going through. Which
Yeah,
was way
yeah.
more
Everybody was interested in him being at home more than they were her going on this adventure. Plus, they telegraphed, like, it was so obvious who the villain was from the very beginning. Like, you know, it's like, why try to set up a mystery when it, you know, from the moment that character walked on the screen, I'm like, that's the bad guy.
Yeah, a lot of all of her storyline was really just ugh. But the bits with Mr. Incredible and the baby, and then what's her name? You know, the costume lady and the baby. That shit was just so hysterical. Like, as soon as she realized what she's dealing with, she's like, "Oh goodness, this will be so fun." No, bye bye, dear. They got him. Like, you know, and she runs off with the kid. Like, you just like it's so much about her character that she was just like, "Oh my, ooh."
I mean, they had a baby fighting a raccoon. I mean, I haven't seen that since I was a kid.
Yeah. There's some things
That used to happen in my neighborhood a lot.
Yeah, I'm you know, runners up in this place as well. I say Andrew Stanton and Bob Proctor. I think are also very brilliant creative people.
Do you know that when I was at Boom, I found out from Pixar that Andrew Stanton had written an entire sequel to Wall-E, and that we could have done it in comic books. And Boom got in my way. Boom got it. Really? Once again, Boom got in the way and shot themselves in the foot. And that was shortly before I was let go, and then they lost the Pixar license because of it.
So Aaron and I worked for Boom, and we were constantly seeing things that were really silly. Like, you know, like a simple example for me was I did a book called Muppet Snow White, but I wanted to call it Snow White and the Electric Mayhem. And I really think that Snow White and the Electric Mayhem would have sold more copies, but they were, you know, trying to just have everything be uniform. And that's
Boom needed it to be branded Muppet thing.
Yeah, but and that's fine. But you know, but it would have. It's not. I think
it's not fine. It was stupid.
Yeah, and then, you know, so similarly, you know, what Aaron just expressed here, that they were struggling to sell a Wall-E comic and Monsters Inc. and a couple of the franchises that were a little bit less, didn't seem necessarily like there was as many stories to tell per se. Those ones were harder to sell to people. But Wall-E, based on the sequel that, you know, Bob Proctor wrote and they haven't released, like, that would have absolutely been the angle in which something like that would have actually sold and could have been successful. So they would often.
I was told that Stanton wrote the sequel to Wall-E. That he had that.
Stanton wrote it. Yeah. Well, and another good example is you know, Boom Studios very famously was saying no to Aaron for getting the license for Darkwing Duck, which was his idea for a very long time. He was trying to get Darkwing Duck. Hey, we should get this license. I really think we need to do something with it. And the powers that be did not think that anything could be made off of Darkwing Duck. They just thought it's some stupid little cartoon, not going to be a big deal. And Aaron said, no, it's really, I'm telling you, people would love to see that. It's a comic book based sort of thing, you know, and like never been done as a comic book before, or at least, you know, in a while, and not like its own comic book. We could do it in a way that's really, really smart.
Not in a way that, it wasn't done in a way that mattered. And what I wanted to do was I wanted it to feel like another season of the show, but I also wanted it to matter. And that was the kind of the thing that you and I kept butting our heads up against the wall with at Boom, is that because we were working with the Pixar characters, because we were working with Disney characters that we had this affinity for, and that had long been presented in this really great light, we wanted everything that we were doing in comics to stand shoulder to shoulder with what they were doing in the films. We couldn't be as ambitious because we would never get the approval for that. But like every single thing that we wanted to do, you know, when you read it, we wanted you to recognize these characters and have the same attachment and you know, feel that the story mattered and that it was going somewhere. And that was what we kept butting our heads up against the wall with Boom on. And as a matter of fact, I remember, Jesse, when they told me that we had to cut your page rate, and I got into a big fight with Ross Ritchie over it. And he said, it doesn't matter who's writing this book. The fact that Jesse goes out and markets it and does all this extra work, you know, that doesn't sell a single other extra copy. What sells it is Buzz Lightyear and Woody, and Woody. And it doesn't matter what they're doing. We could just have them sit on a curb and talk for 22 pages and people will buy it because it says Toy Story. And that was the moment that I was like, this is a terrible place to work. I mean, I already wasn't feeling good about it, but that was just pretty much, I was like, this is This is absolutely untenable. And unfortunately, we continue to see that. We continue to see companies pick up licenses, and it's happening with Darkwing Duck right now, where you get an editor on it who doesn't care. He hires people who don't know the property and don't care, and they just churn out the most basic kind of book that Dynamite can wrap 75 covers around and call it a day. Start making books for readers. Stop making books for speculators. You can still do a bunch of covers. You can still get a bunch of people to buy in on that, but make the book for people who actually read and enjoy it.
Yeah, it's definitely true. The way the business is done is just so often, and it's because the people who want to take leadership most of the time, they're not necessarily the empathetic people who care about everybody. We tend to be like, oh, let me do the creative thing. But, right now, Aaron's got his own book in the background. It's really great. Aaron's been gestating this project, Doomface, kneel before Doomface for a long time. Some of you guys backed and, are aware of King of Kings, which, just we did our raise on Kickstarter, and everybody got their books now. If you didn't get your books, and just a few people whose addresses we never got, just reach out to us over here. But now I've got a new book called Fucking for Our Future, which is really, really, really fun and subversive, and nothing like you would probably imagine it might be, other than the basic concept of fucking for the future to save mankind. But Aaron and I think both, after Boom and so many different experiences over and over again of just sort of making other people a lot of money and having very little to show for it, we're like, if we let this business, there's a lot of change happening in the comics world, in the publishing world, in the music world, in the film world, everything. And if we let it, it will be ruled once again by unscrupulous businessmen, as it is ruled right now. And these unscrupulous businessmen suck. They make terrible deals, and we do not want them to rule the roost all over again. And it behooves gentle and kind and empathetic people like Aaron Sparrow and myself to become our own publishers, to empower ourselves in various ways. And I hope you guys will support, books and music projects and whatever other things that we do as, the future, because supporting all the creative people who you believe in the way they're doing business is really, you're never going to get the type of art that matters until the people who are doing business are people who are egoless enough to let other people shine. And when that happens, it'll unlock the gates of creativity. And all of a sudden, you're going to see all these wonderful creative people that are going to be being lifted up by egoless people who don't mind it when a writer shines bigger than their company. You're going to make me look good. This is amazing. Let me, all of these companies, this is the thing that aggravates me the most. Every single one of these companies had an opportunity to lift me up as a star whenever I've worked for them. And they have the opportunity to do this with every single person who proves themselves to be worthy and consistent at what they do, to raise them up. I used to do a jam night very regularly that I stopped doing because I felt like they were basically just using everybody. And nobody was really being lifted up and honored for their contribution to the night and what was going on. And being unappreciated as a creative person, one, it leads to awful art. It leads to impoverished artists, and it doesn't help anything. So I really we're in a wonderful transform time where there's great independent art coming out all the time, things we can support, on fundraising websites or just through social media and whatnot, and getting awareness out there and covering them. On the Coolest Geeks Alive podcast, I've really tried to dedicate at least half of my shows that I do to just positive stuff, shining a light on things that are fucking awesome, as the saying goes. And I really do think that's important. Keep your face towards the light and be the change you want to see. Bring forth the wonderful creativity that's in you, because we do need more really creative people. And I wish there was 100 more people that I could mention, even though I am going to go over the 11. So Aaron, I'm saying Greg Weisman.
Yes. Now I am biased because Greg is a personal friend of mine. So I'm obviously biased, but I think that Greg has been attached to so many different animated series since his very first one that he was the showrunner on, which was Gargoyles. But he'd worked on series before that. He'd done some work on some other Disney afternoon stuff. I believe he'd done some work on Tailspin. He'd done some work on maybe even Chippendale's Rescue Rangers. But I think definitely like maybe some familiarity with Gummy Bears. I mean, I know that he had like a little bit, like he read through some of the scripts that Tad was doing on Darkwing Duck. So he was always kind of like there in the backgrounds, but like Gargoyles was where he broke out. That was obviously his baby. He's still associated with it today. He's writing the comic book in the one good move that Dynamite has made with their Disney line. It
had been done before and it had been lucrative before, and not like so. I mean, it was a fucking layup.
Yeah, and it's also when you have Greg on the project, for anybody who's doing a Gargoyles comic book, Greg is an immediate layup because nobody knows the property backwards and forwards like him because he created it. So it's always funny when he would get notes back. Like I know that when Slave Labor was doing the book, whoever was in charge of approvals at Disney wrote him back and told him to stop writing the dialogue for Hudson the way that he was writing it, and just write it in like regular English. And he was like, Hudson has a Scottish accent. That's what I'm writing to. I'm writing to his accent. And you and I had the same thing. We had notes like that came back from Pixar at one point where we got notes that said that like you can't have Lenny talk because Lenny doesn't talk, the little pair of binoculars. And I wrote back and I said, not only does Lenny talk at this point in the film, but he's voiced by your director, Joe Ranft. And at that point, someone at Pixar, Kelly Bonbright, she stepped in as like the head of approvals, and she said, just let Aaron do what he wants. He knows the property better than you. And at that point we had kind of proven that we weren't going to do anything with the property that wasn't untoward or that would portray it in a bad light. We were treating it with respect. But as far as like just the ins and outs of who could talk and who couldn't and who did what and what was in the movie, we knew that better than they did. We got in a thing once that, like they said, Nate Watson, Woody's head is too big and his torso is too small, and Nate went in and I'm sorry, there's like a car alarm going off, of course. This idiot doesn't know how to like open their car without setting off the alarm every time. They said that that like these are out of proportion, and Nate went into the film and took a screen cap and took Woody's head and put it on his torso, and it was exactly the right size. Like it's like his head's not supposed to be the same size as his torso, and Nate's like, look, here it is. I just clipped it, moved it down, it's the same size. But they gotta have something. They gotta have something to give you, right? Because they're not justifying their job unless they say that something's wrong. So one of the things that was really great is on Cars, we had Alan Gladfelter, and he would intentionally draw the wrong tooth on Mater too long so that they would come back and say that it's the opposite tooth. And he'd go, oh yeah, you're right. But he already had it corrected. It was just something that they could call out so that they didn't give him any shit on anything else that he was doing.
My good friend Chris Sotomayor, who's a very famous colorist at Marvel, I think he went on to DC for a little while. He used to do the exact same thing. He would leave one glaring error just to give the people of the thing to do. Isn't that so sad, though? That like the level of like what is like happening in terms of like editorial so often is this thing. I tell people all the time, like people are just like worried about their jobs and like hustling too much and all this shit. Like it's crazy.
We got told, like I know you've told this story on the podcast, but we got told after 3 issues of Buster from the show, or from the Buzz Lightyear show appearing in the comic. And we were going to write him out in the next arc because we knew he had to be gone before we got to Toy Story 2 continuity. But it was just a little fun thing that he was in there for a little while, and he was a toy in Andy's room, and eventually he was going to go to Bonnie's room and like it better there. So we never had to worry about seeing him again. But like the approval people got really scared because they were like, wait, we approved Buster to be in this? John Lassiter hates that show. And they were just terrified of this idea that John Lassiter was going to like pick up one of these comics and be like, Buster's in this. I hate that show. And then like heads were going to roll. So everybody's just operating off of fear.
Even though if he had seen what we had done, I think John Lasseter's savvy enough that he would have went, let me hire these guys. Because what we were doing,
I think so too. And like I had a Finding Nemo pitch in there, like a sequel pitch that, would have made a great comic, would have made an even better movie. And I was working with the guys that did the Stuffed of Legend, whose names escape me at the moment. And I don't want to get them wrong, but you can look up the book, The Stuffed of Legend. It's, it's about a teddy bear. they were developing it with me, and they were gonna write the script, and I was, we were doing all the plotting together. That would have made a great movie. Would have made a much better movie than Finding Dory, I think. Although I did like Finding Dory, but it would have been a better movie.
I don't know if you remember it, but my kids actually make me tell them the story all the time of my Monsters Incorporated 2 pitch, which was, I thought, a really great spiritual successor to the Monsters Incorporated, original movie, way better than the Monsters University, which is a very major departure from like the feel of the first, film. But that was so, I wanted to do that one so badly. I tried to even get it into Pixar. I got like one of those, we're not allowed to take unsolicited. I was like, oh, fuck you guys.
Well, it's like, I've actually like done work on your properties for like, licensees. So is it really unsolicited? Like, yeah, you didn't ask me for it, but
it's like, come on. I'm like, well, it's very, all right. So this actually puts us over 11, actually, because that's 11 that we've agreed upon. But
all right, good night, everybody. We did it in an hour. Look at us.
Well, I think that there's one more person who I think that is really in particular, and I mean the whole group is incredible, but I think one person in particular, from what I understand, is doing the motherlode of the sculpting at Four Horsemen Studios, and that is Eric Treadaway. And I think he is Da Vinci reincarnated on Earth. I think the sculpts that he's responsible for at McFarlane Toys in the early days are incredible. His Mandarin Spawn and the Total Chaos stuff that they did, and the what was it, the Wet Works line, and a couple of the other ones. I mean, really, just it could be the coolest freaking sculptures that I've ever held in my hand. I know they've gone on to do this Mythic Legions line of fantasy figures. Me and Aaron got to work on with Greg Weisman, who was also on the list. But I mean, this is why we chose them, because oh, wait a second. We haven't gotten to that part of the show, Aaron Sparrow. That's what we're going to close with. Is that a nice Mythic Legion custom?
That's a Mythic Legion. Although, yeah, this is one of the heads that we did at Big Head Studios Customs. But the body sculpt is all Eric Treadway's, Mythic Legion's orc body. So.
Ooh,
I got a bunch of them sitting here on my desk. I got like all kinds of figures on my desk right here.
I got like, well, you hold your horses for just a second. We'll get to the end of the show. But yeah, what do you think about Eric Treadaway? I feel like he is like God's gift to mankind, honestly. And I. I don't have like an intro to the show, but like I have this.
That was surprising.
I like to put the cart before the horse. We'll have an intro next week. That intro that I played this week isn't even the final intro for this week. That, by the way, Michael Zinn did that. Photosynthesis. Michael Zinn's been out there, I think, in the chat. Michael Zinn's awesome. Does a lot of our logos and stuff for the Black Light District Studios channel. Thanks, Michael. And I should say real quick too, before we wrap our list here, that every Wednesday afternoon, I'm going to be doing the live show by myself, Coolest Geeks Alive, where I'll be half the time gushing about stuff, and then other time kind of breaking down from a writer standpoint, and somebody who really understands so much of this intellectual property and loves it and loves the audience and that perspective. So those people who are watching on YouTube for the first time and haven't dealt with me before, it's really I consider myself an English major, and I feel very much like they're disrespecting so many authors, and that's basically the perspective of my show. So you can check that out. But also Monday night, if you're a music person, I'm doing live every night. All Your Bands Suck, which is basically a feature of all my favorite bands, because I think that the rap genre, the metal genre, the punk genre, and humor, there's a lot of different genres that really get shortchanged by the mainstream. So trying to shine a light on things that I don't think get the respect they deserve, like my father, was sister, who have never really gotten the respect they deserve. And I've done 20 or so episodes now that you can go find some bands that you might get into. And then finally, starting on Friday, for the first time, I'm doing a show called everything they don't want you to know. And really,
Everything?
I'm gonna be everything.
Everything
yeah.
they don't want me to know? That's a lot.
All of the
They don't want me
it is. It's going to take me a long time. So I mean, you're gonna have to stay with it for a while. But
I mean, I know a lot of it. I know a lot that they don't want me to know. But
it's super fun. Like this is like a silly thing to say, but like it's the truth. I mean, like I doubted there was Illuminati or any sort of like organized blah 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 until like I was living in Los Angeles and I was asked to go to their parties and join them, and then I went, oh, these things are things. And, there's a lot of sacred information that is available to you, but people disregard it. And without getting into stupid stuff that will bog you down, I'm going to really try to illuminate some really important information that, sages have known for a long time. I've spent a long time trying to understand how to walk through this planet the right kind of way. And there's some real fundamental things about, like, the quantum physics version of reality where we're living in this crazy multiverse. There's a blend between that, which was my atheist mind when I was a kid, and a more spiritual mind that have led people to, Christ-like behaviors and raising their vibrations higher and all sorts of sage-like wisdom. And I've tried my best to learn this stuff and, just for myself to keep reinforcing my knowledge and giving myself an excuse to dig into it that much deeper. I want to start sharing it with people. So I'm going to be doing that on Friday for the first time. I'm really excited to kind of talk about a whole bunch of really cool things I think will be useful for you in the long term. Anyway, me and Aaron will be here every Sunday night. We've been wanting to do this for years and years and years. He's my favorite person to talk to. I love him. And we don't get to see each other enough and hang out. So this is like our excuse to see each other and hang out, and our excuse to bring on people that we really love and respect, like some of the people we've been talking about tonight, like Greg Weissman and Eric Treadaway. They're people that me and Aaron are about to reach out to have on as guests. Some of these coolest geeks, we know them. There's people that we haven't necessarily spoken about yet that I wanted to talk about too, like Joe Kelly, who I think is a really brilliant comic book writer and has produced really brilliant cartoons for kids, and his company. I really think he deserves a lot of respect. There's so many more people. Honestly, I think me and Aaron could probably go on for hours just talking about all the people who are at least rumbling, making some really good stuff in the world, for all of us to make. I do think that we've gotten to like a lot of the best ones. And, I think we ended up picking a dozen. So like, I would tell people, like, if you're seeing this show afterwards, I would love to see these comments filled with the people that you feel like missed. And you know what? And we should probably come back again and do another version of this show once we like have a little bit of time to think about it. Because I'm sure I'm going to be like, oh man, who I fucking forgot, Aaron? Like Roger Corman just died. And I tweeted to Aaron because Alan Ning from Film Thunder posted it. And I was like, well, cross one off of the Coolest Geeks Alive list.
Yeah.
There goes another one. Does Tim Burton deserve to be on the list? There's some people who I'm like, there's a lot to consider. So feel free to fill up these these comments with as many people as possible, because I'm totally going to come back and look, because I really want to see
fill up your comic books too. Just get a crayon and just start get your most valuable comic and just start writing people's names in it.
Yeah. Oh, I wanted to do something too. I wanted to do a little ad for the Ghost Machine comic books. Geoff Johns, who's on our list, is trying to do something really good right now. He's starting his own universe with a lot of really brilliant creators whose work I've consistently enjoyed. These Ghost Machine comic books have just come out. It's there's one that's a preview comic that has all of these different bits. You can see the GE and Geiger and Redcoat. But I mean, by great artists like Gary Frank and Brian Hitch, and one of my favorite artists of recent times, Jason Fabok, who did that amazing 3 Jokers with Geoff Johns, which was just incredible. The designs in this book look awesome. I really trust Geoff Johns as a creative person, and something like this, I wish that if I was a creative person who had earned myself in the industry to the level that this man has, I would wish that people who appreciated my work were out there pimping it for me and telling people how much they love him and how much he deserves your money and your time. So go to a comic book store and get that shit, because he really has fucking earned it over a long career of making great stuff. And I haven't had a chance to read them yet, but I just was looking through the beautiful art, and oh my God, they're gorgeous looking. I said, I rarely read anything terrible from Geoff Johns. One of our buddies said something about he didn't love the Geoff Johns Superman. Yeah, I didn't love the Geoff Johns Superman either, but I was saying something about how Geoff Johns, I could feel the fingerprints of editorial on his work a lot. And I think that was another one of those times where I was very much like, yeah, they're squeezing him, they're making him do things that don't really work. But in general, he is a brilliant creative person, and I love him. So call us out on whoever we're missing there. And yeah, I mean, Aaron, are we missing anybody? Like, you know, we did a dozen. Is there somebody that we're egregiously leaving out that you can think of?
Joe Corallo threw Conan O'Brien in the ring.
Conan O'Brien is the Coolest Geek Alive. You know, that's interesting. That's really interesting. I've come to appreciate him, and he does have, you know, Joe, I think really gets, you know, what I mean when I say, you know, there's a certain sort of aesthetic. I used to go into meetings in Hollywood and I would say, look, Bernie Sanders proves that there is an audience out there that isn't superficial, and they don't want to see the Kardashians on their like entertainment update. You know, like,
I don't know if Bernie Sanders proves that, but I like where you're going otherwise.
well, I really think it does. I think that, like, because for years there was this impression, and it's so funny because it's like back the other way in so many different ways with the DEI bit and everything. But for years there was this impression that like everything had to be like, you know, sex sells and everything had to be flashy, and Bernie Sanders isn't the type of candidate that anybody go for. But Bernie Sanders,
you don't think that Bernie Sanders is sexy?
I mean,
when he comes out and he's like, I am once again asking you. No, you know what's sexy about Bernie Sanders is that his State of the Union address would like largely be him complaining about the fact that there was a hair in his matzo ball soup at Barney's. That's my favorite thing about, you know, where he would just like, I would just love to see him go off on a tangent and be like, you know, yeah, you know, I put the hair in there. I did it. I don't, you know, you get a discount if you put the hair in there. Like, I'm doing more Larry David more than I'm doing.
Listen, Aaron, there's room in every side for a little communism, okay?
hey, it's Democrat. We'll be placed in democratic gulags.
That's funny. But I really do think that he proved that like people were listening what he was saying, you know, and he didn't have to be like an attractive candidate in the traditional sense. And, you know, and there's just a lot to say to, there is a huge segment of society who is starving for something for their intellect to do, you know, and that's why we enjoy these worlds, you know, and these, you know, being able to go deeply into these places. Like I keep talking about how I'm 4 chapters into Lord of the Rings right now, finally being it after all these years, because I had bought a 15-pound volume of all the books collected. And it was breaking my back when I was trying to travel with it and read. And I kept rereading the first chapter over and over again, and every time it would break my back. And I finally sold it at a garage sale, and I felt defeated. And then I got it on my phone now, and every day I'm like 5 pages in, and I'm finally reading Lord of the Rings. I feel so proud of myself. Yeah. But anyway, I love you guys. Thank you so much for coming out to our first episode here tonight. This has been so much fun to interact with my friend. He and I are going to start reaching into our Rolodex of some of our favorite people and getting people onto the schedule. And I think we're just going to do one person at a time because me and Aaron have big mouths, and and we want to put our foot in them while we gush over some of the great people that we know. And we're going to try to start with some people who might maybe be able to help us, you know, get a little extra eyes on the channel, because we do know some people who are pretty special, like the Greg Weissmans and the Eric Treadaways of the world, and some people who are at least very special to us as well. And then we're going to start getting in some of our buddies and you know, people in the community who we think have great things to say, and talking about all sorts of great stuff as it comes up. And then also, you know, I'm going to try not to let the news cycle drive our show. You know, if we can, Aaron, you know, because I find that outrage culture thing where like everybody's just like, pile onto the thing, and everybody's trying to like race to get to the same subject at the same time and all this stuff, you know. So I think we'll try to talk about things as we feel passion towards it, as the thing begins to click for us. And I probably will be a little ahead of the curve on some of these things, because, you know, we really do love this stuff, and you know, and we're, you know, constantly kind of contemplating how to do it better, because this is what we do, this is what we love to do, and this is what we hope to do until we're old and gray. So, if you love this stuff and love all these wonderful worlds that people have been creating for you and appreciate, geek culture and all the brilliant minds that have come together to give it, then you too are one of the coolest geeks alive, like my friend Aaron. And of course, I named more than 12. I named 13 because Aaron Sparrow is the coolest geek alive. Love Aaron Sparrow. You just don't know as well as I know. If you knew what I knew, you guys out there in La La Land, you would know Aaron Sparrow, one of the coolest geeks alive. You would know that.
Yeah,
Anyway,
there's a couple people. There's a couple people in the world that love me. I'm a very divisive figure. I don't. What's like? I've always said this to Jesse. I've always said like, people like seem to either like really like me or not like me at all. Like I don't run into too many people who are like, I could take him or leave him. Like,
well, I said so last week. I did 100 episodes of the podcast, not on camera. And everybody kept saying to me, like, why don't you go onto YouTube and, do it there? Like, because I've hosted shows and stuff. And I said, well, because like I've been hosting things since I was 19. And the one conclusion I've come to is that I have kind of a punchable face. And a lot of people seem to react really viscerally to it. And I just was like, I just want people to listen to what I have to say before they like gather around and threaten to punch me in the face. Like, seems to happen.
There's people that have much more punchable faces than you, especially in the comics industry.
Well, you like me. You have time to get used to me. But like since I was a teenager on MTV, like I was just like, I was gay and like, like all this, like, just like stuff. I was like, what did I do to you? I'm literally just reading the fucking teleprompter. This isn't fair.
But this is the internet, right? Like if you're on the internet, like people are gonna talk trash, and it's just like something that you and a lot of times, like you'll get trash talked about you, but it's all in love. Like it's just people roasting you because that's of course how guys relate to each other. It's like we roast the shit out of each other. Max over MVP, who's here in the chat. Max coming in and like, like being like, I don't know why you guys are like making fun of things and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, have you ever listened to us? We make fun of each other most of all. Like, Josh rags on Max. Max rags on Josh. I rag on both of them. They come back at me. We all rag on Drew. Then we all tell Kyle that we hate him.
Well, and we love things too. It's really funny. I'm finding that the internet is like self-correcting long term. There's a lot of people who have podcasts and you will watch them get like broken down on YouTube, by people who are really intently watching their shows and listening to what they have to say. And over time are starting to notice some things about them, and are making videos demonstrating that they are ageist. And there is a consistent pattern of that comes through. And there is a lot of proof of this. And it's funny to me, because I just think somebody said, the currency of the future was authenticity, and that made me so happy because I was just like, man, I've lamented to you that stupid story about James Robinson, who's a pretty famous comic book writer. He had come up to me at a party, and I've told Aaron this story before, and he was like, I'm gonna do an impression. He was like, you know what your problem is, mate? You're too genuine. People meet you and they think, no way.
Okay, wait. You clipped out. You said so. The actual quote from James Robinson is, "You're too genuine. You're too. You're too. What was it? What was the other word he used? It was sincere. You're too sincere. You're too genuine. You're too sincere. The way that you said it, where it clipped, it sounded like James Robinson told you you're too Inuit."
Oh. That's funny. Yeah, but he said people met me and they didn't believe it. They didn't believe that I was as sincere as I am. I am very sincere. Like, I hate small talk. Like, so for me, I am very sincere. I just try to kind of get to the heart of people and like meet people so I can feel like I met them, as opposed to, it's hard for me to remember people's names and shit unless I actually feel like I met them. But if I feel like I met them, then like I'll like actually remember and like I'll take it away. So I try to really like, capture a moment with people. But James said people don't believe me, and it takes 3 times meeting me in order to decide, oh, I guess he really is this sincere. And I was like, oh, well, that's aggravating.
Okay, well, Joe Corallo's in the chat. Our good friend Joe. By the way, Joe, put an F in the chat if I can say the project that you're working on that's coming out in June. I don't know if it's been publicly announced yet, but anyway, Joe's written a really great story for a book that's coming out in June, and I don't know if I can talk about it yet, but if I can, I will, because it's fantastic. Oh, awesome. I got a chance to read it. But Joe is saying that he and James Robinson went to a burlesque show together once. It was a nice time.
I buy that. James is a cool guy. I like James.
He wrote Firearm, man. Firearm at the Ultraverse. Like, yes, I know he has a body of work of many other things, like Starman, which is fantastic, and and things like that. But yeah, I'm like, I loved the Ultraverse unabashedly, even when it was, even the books that weren't that good, I still loved it.
I haven't gotten to read a lot of that stuff. I've read Starman, which I've enjoyed, and I really loved the JSA stuff that he was a part of with David S. Goyer and Geoff Johns. That's also good. Yeah, we have such a wonderful group of friends and good people. We have a lot of friends in the YouTube sphere. Last night I was, or earlier in the night, I should say, I was like gushing to Aaron. I was like, Doomcock loved my tweet. Which is so funny because just Aaron and I have both, like, we have big mouths, and we end up propagating ourselves in various places. We recommend each other to the people. We're like, you should have Aaron on the show. So you should have and this is how
I would love to talk to Doomcock, just because for Neil before Doomface, before Doomcock started, and this is just one of those things that happens. I'm not saying that, I didn't rip Doomcock off. He didn't rip me off. But I had Doomface's, old castle from the 80s named Xanadoom. And then I was watching Doomcock video, and he's talking about broadcasting from Xanadoom. And I'm like, oh, damn it. I'm like, now it's going to look like I copied Doomcock. But I have an idea for a joke. And so I want to, before the book comes out, I want to see if I can get a hold of Doomcock and clear that joke with him and actually reference him in the book, which I think would be a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like they're so sweet. Really, the YouTube community, like, here is so nice. And like, I've been studying YouTube, and then I got brought on to podcasting, Podcast Playground, which is a great company as well. You should check out the Podcast Playground channel. They do so many different shows, including Shaq has a show on their channel that's great, and a really cool network. But so coming into podcasting, like, all the podcasts I knew were from YouTube. So it did make a lot of sense for me to come over to this space. And, me and Aaron have been able to go on a lot of different, friends of ours channels and commentate. And I have been able to go on, Doomcock's show once. And him and for a Film Threat both invited me on to promote the Fucking For Our Future book, which is about to start. Like, right now, if you go onto my Twitter, there's a link right at the thing. I put one in the chat earlier. That'll take you straight to the Shopify where you can sign up for notifications. It's going to be live in 30 days, and the first 69 people are eligible for the early boob special, which is 69.
That's funny. I did not know that. That's funny. That made me laugh.
Yeah. No, actually, like really, like, before I go, I should really pull up the commercial that we have that is going to be running for it. It's not completely done. But I can get it. But I can get the almost done version from my mailer. It is really it is something else. I'll show it to you in a second. Aaron, is there anything that you can direct people to that they can find you at for the fear of their knowing and understanding how awesome Aaron Sparrow is?
Oh, thank you. Probably the most important thing is sign up for Doomface's mailing list at neilbeforedoomface@gmail.com. That's probably the most important thing that I can push right now, because we are probably launching at the end of June is the plan. Everything is on track for that right now. There's a couple of things that got to come together, but it's looking really good. So anybody who signs up for the mailing list will be eligible for additional perks and giveaways and little items and things like that won't be available to people who didn't sign up early. So it's a good chance to get some exclusive campaign perks. Also, you may hear from Doomface or Lexi themselves because that is their email account. And other than that, you can find me on Twitter, Aaron Sparrow, Instagram, Aaron Sparrow. You can find me on Wednesdays and on Saturdays on Comics Aficionados and Wes from Thinking Critical. That's his channel there. I do a podcast with him, and then we also do the Saturday show. Gonna have a very special guest this Saturday. I can't announce who it is yet, but somebody that whose work I really admire. And then you can find me on Maxfield Von Priestley's channel. We do Max's Man Cave, and occasionally I pop in on their Friday comic review and cause some trouble. And then Tuesday nights on Pop by Culture with Josh. And sometimes I'm on Verbal Riot. Sometimes I'm on Film Threat. Sometimes I'm on Clownfish TV. I'm all over the place, man. Even I'm getting sick of myself.
I'm sick of you already.
Well, you know what? Freaking Wiener says that I don't have a punchable face, so at least I got that going for me.
Wait a second. I thought it was me that doesn't have a punchable face. Wait, he just says you're the one who doesn't have the punchable face?
You don't have a punchable face. And then he says, although there are many YouTubers he'd like to punch in the face. But he said, for me not to worry, I'm not one of them.
You either. Okay, and you just heard yourself. You're like, you just think
yeah,
about
do you have a
you.
punchable
Like,
face? He's just like, but I'm not interested.
Thank God for me. All right, so I'm going to pull this thing up, and I think it's just going to immediately play. But this is the ad that we're making for Fucking for Our Future. There is a we got to bleep out the voiceover and like the songs. There's like a couple minor things that are going to change, but this is it. Tell us what you think. Let's see. All right, it's coming up. Right, it's doing the thing.
Men and women alike love big titties. Boys, girls, and babies love big titties. Make them admit to admit that I'm right. You love big titties. Yes. Who doesn't? You love big titties. Love big titties. I love big titties. I love big titties. I love big titties.
We want you. Fucking for our future. Sign up for notifications now on Kickstarter.
What part?
Only
What parts
from
were you?
Blacklight District Studios.
What do we think?
I would just like to.
Oh,
I would just like to say. I would just like to say that I celebrate the whole catalog. They don't necessarily have to be big. Like I'm
Well, wait a second.
I don't
I have to.
I don't want anyone to go away feeling badly about themselves.
The funniest part was I thought the same thing when I wrote that hook, and I immediately wrote a bridge for the song. And let's see, it goes, let's hear it, doot, 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 for small titties, doot, 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 wonderful, doot, 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 in their own way, doot, 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 3 cheers, hip, hip, hooray, small titties, doot, 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 don't let our love of big titties ruin your day.
So, do you want to talk like since you ran the trailer and we got people here and do you want to talk about what inspired you to do this book? Like what the catalyst was for this?
I guess I should because it's a funny story ultimately. So me and Aaron were working for this company, Mer Publishing, which is ultimately like every single other publisher that we've ever worked with. And we just, him and I, foolish us again, thinking that perhaps we could help them build something there. And we ended up both having a lot of frustration in dealing with them. I'll put it that way. And, coming out of it for like being like sort of smacked in the hand for like a third time really bad and going like, you know what, I just have to do this myself. I started really looking at what was working on Kickstarter and what was working for them. And what was working for them was nudity and sex. And I had such a big problem with it with my books that they were doing called Guns and Angels because it affects the storyline. And every cover that they released that was a nude cover, I actually like Aaron, like, and you, because I hadn't gotten to it, but I had figured out ways to write it into the story.
I tried to do the same thing with Miss Meow. If we'd gotten to do Miss Meow, there would have been a bad clone that was actually out there doing all of the nudity so that we could have preserved Miss Meow's heroism, because I actually hated the fact that they were portraying the heroines that way. And I brought it up in several meetings that, the heroines should not be portrayed this way. It makes you look at them in a certain light. And, they don't care because ultimately it's not about that. It's just about putting something out there that, as your boy Zach would say, divorced dentists are going to spend their money on, and they're never going to read it. They're just going to put it in their collection until one day they wake up and they realize, why do I have all these Shikari covers that are almost exactly the same? With just a bunch of nudity on them. What am I spending all this money on? It's
so funny too, because I think you would probably agree with this, and it's really kind of a question, but because I would like to see if you agree, but I think you probably it's not even necessary. Like there's a maximum spread level of thing. Like there are levels of covers and levels of presentation that you can usually get away with that are in line with the cover. You know, they're out in the wilderness, but they just happen to be kind of heaving out of their blouse a little bit. You know, there are ways to do things that are there. You know, it really is sort of shameful and shameless, and it's like preying upon the marketplace a bit. I think that's something that me and Aaron both always felt, because like I never would have done this ever in a million years. Like I didn't think like this. My artist, who's in disguise, because, you know, we work on things that are like, you know, Disney things and stuff like that, and like, you know, preserving our whatever. But I see that there's a place to break into the market in a financial way. And what I decided to do was play that game, but elevate it and do it differently. Like, case in point, like, this is a bit of a spoiler here for our future, but there is actually no female nudity in the book. The only nudity that is on the covers and in the book is all a power armor that the women of Glon have built to send into the wilderness to collect sperm samples from these men who have genetically modified themselves into beasts in order to, you know, just sort of asexually reproduce and live in the woods again and just enjoy life as animals. And the animals aren't interested in the women, and the women are only interested in the sperm. And it's just a comedy, a science fiction comedy, and all of the nudity is applied within the book in a really logical way. And it's really kind of silly and over the top, and not something I think anybody's expecting, and will really surprise you. And it's just left everybody who's working on it just giggling constantly. And I'm so proud of it, because that's what it was meant to do. Like, it's just, when I wrote that silly big titties jingle, like, this was just like, this is just such a silly thing here. You know, I hope other people enjoy it the way I've been enjoying it. And so far, so good. People have been doing it. Actually, like on Monday, Murphy and her marketing team are going to be like launching ads book, and like, you know, starting to collect, you know, people's information and gearing up for the actual launch in 30 days. And I'm sure Aaron's Kneel Before Doomface is going to be right early after that, or around the end of it. Anyway, this whole thing really came from a specific moment in time where they did a book called Jinkies. And the Merc guys, they were just really realizing their formula. And their formula was just simple sex and derivative things that were close enough to things that people might already like, that they could, in a way that it wouldn't be presented that way by all these corporations, and they could present it in a more lustful way. And this Jinkies book made, I think, $70,000 in one day. And I just went, what the, all right, that's it. It like snapped me. I was like, if I let them, this industry is going to be taken over by these unscrupulous people. I know that they're no good. I know they're just like every other company under the sun. You know, I need to find a way to get a hold in this world. You know, King of Kings is a great book, but it was kind of, for me, it was something that is like a little niche, and it's not necessarily a mass market kind of book. But I needed to do something that was really mass market. And, you know, that was this. But I'm playing with my own rules, and it's really an interesting bit. But this was a similar motivation, too, to my good friend who I got involved in the project, Dizzy Arnold, because he had a friend who was not as skilled as he was, who had just made a lot of money just basically selling sex and selling this stuff. And me and Dizzy, we really put the time and effort in, like, love this genre and do something that's kind of fun. And like, I mean, if you go check out that Shopify link that I sent you, Murphy made a page with some of the artwork and some of the covers and things that we have coming. And oh my goodness, everything's so gorgeous. And like, Dizzy did such a great job. Our colorist Ruvian, who did the colors, is amazing. And the story, it's just like my favorite thing I ever wrote, because I never expected that I would ever write it. And me and Dizzy had just been laughing our fucking asses off the whole time, giggling over this stupid project we made. And I know that if people actually get it in their hands, they are going to be so glad they did. It's so awesome. We have poster books and like so many cool things that we're offering on the campaign. So get over there and do that when the time comes. And keep following the show every Monday, 8 o'clock LA time or California time, and Eastern time. It's 11 o'clock. And yeah, we are going to be back doing this. This will be submitted now tomorrow. This will be a podcast, Aaron, which the Podcast Playground will be pushing out to other people. And the Podcast Playground will be working with us on our YouTube stuff on getting this stuff out. So we'll get more and more people trying to find all this stuff and learning who we are. And we'll have plenty of time to talk about all of our escapades in the business of being creative people. Any
Yeah, you
parting
guys will
words,
probably
my-
hear a lot of behind the scenes stories, since I don't have any interest in working in the mainstream anymore, and I don't have any interest in working for any of these big publishers.
Burn
I'm
the
happy
bridge,
to.
burn the bridge.
Yeah, I'm
Time
happy
to-
just to nuke it from orbit.
That's how I feel. Like, I don't want anything to do with them, so why not just be frank? It is time to be frank and be Aaron and be Jesse and be the coolest geeks alive. I'm going to send up our little intro as an outro, and I'll see you guys again on Wednesday afternoon here. I'm doing it at 12 California time, and I guess it'll be 3 East Coast time. And Monday night, if you want to hang out with me tomorrow, I'm doing Rise Against. They're a fucking awesome rock and like metal band. They're really fucking cool. I've been catching up on their music all week, and that's tomorrow night at 11/8. All right, same thing as this. All right, so it's really easy. Sunday and Monday night, you can hang with me if you want to. Me and Aaron here, and me doing music there. Or Wednesday and Friday afternoon at 12 and 3. All right. Anyway, I'll see you guys for the next ones. Thanks so much for joining us for our first show. I reached out to a few people directly because I wanted to make sure that we had a little bit of an audience, and we had a lot of people who came by tonight, and we really appreciate you guys being here for our first episode. We love you all. And Aaron, I love you, man. I look forward to doing this with you for a long time.
Yeah, man. Let's do it next week.
All right, let's see.
Hey, it's my song. Let's sing it. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Come on, it's gonna be fucking awesome. You know the words. It's gonna be fucking awesome. That's it. Sing. It's gonna be fucking awesome. Yeah. It's my favorite part. Isn't that heavy? I'll play that. Coolest alive.
You've been listening to Coolest Geek Alive with me, your host, Jesse Blaze Snider. Don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe for more excellent geek culture content. Thanks for listening.